first heartbreak. I mean, for a split second, I was thinking about, you know, the young love thing, you know, and then I diverted quickly from that. And I'm 120% sure, actually, that the first heartbreak that I experienced was one that I don't remember. That was subconscious and more a physical separation, and it was more, yeah, it was more of an unconscious thing. You know, it stays with you, but when I was 9 months was when my birth mother gave me up for adoption, and I think that that would absolutely be the first heartbreak that I experienced. And I would also say now, I'm 32, and so I've recently said that I'm in my terrible 32s, which I thought was pretty funny. Because I'm a little bit late on my Saturn return. I thought that it hit me and knocked me down in my 30 when I hit 30, but it's clearly this past year has been very difficult for me, and it's not anyone else's reasoning or fault. It's more of all of that trauma of heartache from childhood that I wrote about actually quite a lot, and ironically had a lot of wisdom around it, but I sort of bypassed it quite a bit. You know, I acknowledged it through song, and began sharing that understanding with the world. But in the same breath as I would share my process and, you know, and ultimately my healing of it, I guess, you know, I would I'd be like, all right, well, this is how it felt. Here's some facts, you know, and here's my rounded out idea of it, you know, because I'd always try and you know, have a moral of the story, I guess, if you will. I didn't like to leave things open-ended, at least back then when I was writing about it, you know, and so it's more so now that I'm experiencing the irony of what I'd said a number of years ago. I have maybe 4 records out now, I think, and their accumulation of those stories of separation and of growing up without her, and what that was like, and you know, the first half of them are probably filled with a lot of angst and questioning of reality and of identity and a purpose, you know, and so there's a common theme that comes through a lot of that music, which was forgiveness, and I think that it was something that I naturally wanted to do, even though at the time I didn't necessarily know what I was forgiving, but it was the act of letting go of the pain, even though I hadn't necessarily understood where it was actually coming from, where it was actually coming from, and even in my 20s, I was quite fervent in saying that I didn't have abandonment issues, because to me that was a sign of weakness, and I didn't want to be weak. I didn't want to say I have trauma, or I have you know, something far worse than like separation anxiety, you know, like when a child is taken from his or her you know, parents, specifically the mother, because when you're with your mother, you know, for that, whatever, maybe for 6 years even, you know, like you know, you're creating and have created such a bond. I mean, when you're in the womb for 9 months, you are surrounded by water, you know, and you share your mother's heartbeat and you share her breath. And so you are one, you know, for that long of time. And when you come out and the world is so bright, you know, and you don't even want to open your eyes, and it's and all of a sudden you're having to like take your own breaths, you know, and your heart has to work on its own. It's this super alien, like, scary experience, you know. And then, you know, we're such sponges, of course, especially when we come right when we come out, and when we're inside for those 9 months, you know. That when we come out, it's, you know, everyone's experience is different, but it's so important to have, you know, your anchor, you know, be there for you and be there with you. And, you know, so many of us don't get to experience that, and I think that, you know, there's a deep wound for a lot of people that that don't get to have that. And, you know, it's a reflection, of course, of how we treat the Mother Earth as well, with the unacknowledged wound of when we come out into the world, and what kind of trauma we experience, and the kind of grief that needs to be processed, you know. So yeah, I think that would certainly be. I don't think I would have acknowledged that even a couple years ago, that would have been the first heartbreak. I think I'm just in that time of my life of like going like, oh yeah, that's where it's coming from, you know. I think I might have been too proud even a couple years ago to say that that's where it comes from, you know, because I didn't understand it in its fullness yet. And I think that some more life-changing and humbling experiences had to happen for me to understand it in its fullness, or at least to begin to understand it in its fullness, you know. Yeah.
I definitely hear that there's a frequency of connectingness at the womb where water incubates the soul, and that separation becomes not just a heartbreak, but also a void. You know,
Absolutely. When I met her, though, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
You said void. I was like, oh yeah. Remembering when I did meet her, 21 years later, and I kept saying that the way that it felt was as if there was a void that had been filled that I wasn't aware of, you know.
What was that?
Sorry?
What was that? You said a void that has been filled.
I think a void, you know, maybe translated as a role, even though the role had been filled. There was this, it was hard to understand the complexity of saying, okay, the role has been filled for this long, yeah, yet here is the flesh and blood. Where do you fit in, you know? How does that work? You know, now that I've wrapped my head around that, so okay, so are you all of a sudden gonna be that role, you know? There's something that's feeling like the mystery, I suppose, of her existence was filled. And the knowledge now of her, you know, physical makeup, her physical presence, her spirit was there in front of me, you know? So I guess maybe the mystery had been solved of like her actual existence, perhaps.
Yeah.
Something like this.
But I still hear like there's something that you're still searching for. Perhaps it translates in other women in your life that you've attracted along the way. I'm talking now of, you know, flames.
Sure.
Either twin flames or complementary flames.
Without a doubt, I searched for my mother in every lover that I have had. And I think that kind of understanding has only recently awakened in me, of saying, you know, the heart in the home, you know, looking for my mom in my lovers, and saying, nurture me, you know, hold me in a way that I didn't get, you know. And I think that in years back, I probably would have felt ashamed of that, of feeling like that was, you know, some wimpy, like, it wasn't my idea of a strong man to like come into that space and say that I lacked that nurturing or lacked that kind of cradling that a child needed, you know. And so yeah, there has been that coupling, I guess, you know, as I've you know, woven different levers into my life, and as they have like shown up for me in those different ways. And especially now when I look back at it and I go like, oh wow, that's what that was about, you know. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting.
I hear that from your music, a lot of the what has been solved in the space of dealing with grief and dealing with the void. Would you say that you're still searching for the why?
The why of...
Why it all happened.
Yeah, maybe. The why it all happens. I mean, the answer to that often is like right in front of me, you know, like the gift and the joy that I get through the work I do, and the weird mystery of you know, of my channel, and like that the magnetic energy that's been given to me to gather people in that way. Yeah. I mean, I could, you know, I could write great songs that have processed deep trauma, but I could also not attract people to listen to it at all. You know, I could be in the closet playing them and people would be like, whatever, that's just a guy in the closet, you know what I mean? So there's like this gift of energy too, and of how it's delivered, but
could I rephrase the question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Something to do with the water theme of being in the womb and the separation as a microcosm of what's happening on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
I hear in your music a lot of the soul searching, a lot of the knowing. There came a point where you said, and it all makes sense. You know, perhaps the first question I want to work up to is what dots were you connecting? You know, talking about we're living in a third world country, people are starving. You know, what dots were connecting in your journey that got you to finally say, now it all makes sense?
Well, if you're in referencing this particular song and that particular time of going like the aha moment, yeah. I grew up. I was homeschooled actually from like 3rd grade to 10th grade, and so all of the history that I received was very colonized history, you know, and so when I began to drive around in the summers in my early 20s, and whether it was through literature or through the actual like act of like, you know, vagabonding around with like a couple bucks and like ending up in random places and playing on the street, you know, for some gas money and food, it was I ended up traveling to different reservations, and I think it was there that I started to go like, oh wow, everything I learned was totally a lie. And also, I remember getting really pissed off when I'd go to the national parks because I hated buying a pass. I specifically remember this being like, what the fuck? Why do I have to like pay to get into this place? This is stupid. And they're like, well, you know, because they maintain the parks. I was like, that's why you fucking pay taxes. And I was like, what is this stupid fee that I have to pay? I was like, this should be free. I was so anti-establishment, like out the gate. I remember being just like, fuck anyone that wears a suit, fuck anyone that sits at a desk. You're wasting your fucking life. And I was, you know, I was pretty mad, you know. And the dad that raised me as well, like, sort of had this image of, to me, he held in the negative part of him, because there's many positive things about him. But the negative part that I held on to, because, you know, it was like me and my dad was like, you know, the negative parts I held on to him were like he's this establishment, you know, kind of guy. And so anybody that reminded me of the establishment, you know, was a memory of childhood. And so it was very like, you know, no to any of that stuff. I had no compassion for anybody back then. But to go back to your question.
So where was do you mind if I
Yeah.
ask a follow-up to what you just said?
Yep.
In Love Letters to God, in the music video, there was a John Trudeau quote.
Trudeau, yeah.
And it said, well, it said something about you can't fight hate, or don't react to the hate with people that have no sense. With people that have no sense. So my question is, you know, you had as an early adolescent, you had a lot of hate, but you had sense, and yet the hate and the sense were in constant, you know, battle within yourself, the war within. So at what point were you able to transmute the hate into something that propelled the medicine that's
I see. I mean, I don't think there was at one point, you know. I think that it gradually happened over time. I think I still battle with that, because there is in essence, you know, the guiding hand of my higher self, and the rebellious, stubborn fighter, in, I hate to say a lower aspect of myself, but I would just say that, you know, the duality that I exist in, you know. And I think that we all sort of have that, you know. We have many aspects of ourselves, and each day we have to address them and decide who's going to be in charge today, you know, and who's gonna lead the way, and who's gonna make the decisions on X, Y, Z. And so I think that I can nod to the higher, you know, the higher self in me that took the cues, I suppose, of, you know, not only saying what I said through the songs, but made the decisions in my life to be here in front of you now. And that's not to say that, you know, the other aspects of myself at whatever, you know, lower or higher area didn't make just as many decisions as the higher aspect to arrive here, you know. I think that it's important, of course, to acknowledge that they both are important, and yet I think that maybe all of our teachers have always said that of course, our higher self is the aspect that we strive to ascend with. Yeah. And of course, not to conquer those other aspects of ourselves, but to acknowledge them and understand them all in their intricacies and their complexities, and be able to greet them each time with compassion and grace and firm leadership.
Open up your fist, a misconception. You can fight like this and praise. With the power of prayer, if God's on our side, you can take the stairs to the heavens. Flipping through my chapter 7, I live with the snakes and the great deception. No court in this country for men who steal from the mother on paper with pen, and we're tripping down a red dirt road and we're asking, is this the way we should go? Kissing up top feet, oh my God, this we walk the earth, baby, yeah, we got this focus, and it's redirecting grateful, and resurrecting stubborn. I know when you're the skin of my drum to your rhythm, I will sway, take my hand. I won't lead you astray. We will not go gently into the darkest of days. Grandma's here, and she says persevere. Take a walk in our moss, take a trail of tear or fear. All the same as the everywhere fears. Not the pain of a Holocaust years. Always smile with emotion. Maybe me and nothing of an ocean. Your watches, how they been thinking track on my conscience. Never slip through the grip of my thesis. And my memory is I shine your presence of deliverance. Yeah.
Do you believe in demons and devils? And can you recall a personal encounter?
I do believe in demons and devils. Let's think about that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it doesn't stand out in this very moment.
Well, my follow-up is, on those moments you've encountered or you felt the presence of or intuition, what did you discover in that space? You know? What's the characteristic of darkness, having confronted it?
It's very attractive. Darkness is very attractive. It plays on all of your dreams and wishes and desires and lusts and visions, and it's really tricky to peel through the layers of the truth. Sometimes we wade through those waters for a long time, and yet we can't live without it, which is why we're just like, hashtag why though? Hashtag the great why though? Like, because you go, fuck that shit, god damn, and then you're like, God bless it. Because obviously, you know, all of our great teachers always spoke about the dualities and that how necessary it was to embrace both. And it is such a trip to embrace both without overdoing it and without fooling yourself. And it doesn't matter how connected to your indigenous roots, from wherever you come from, whatever indigenous place that you come from, it doesn't matter how deep within your own ceremonies you are, how connected to God you are not exempt. You are not exempt from getting smacked sideways.
You gotta get out of your way. You gotta put down the weight. grandchildren's, 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 grandchildren's. For the grandchildren. All of creation. All right? Let me hear it. Here we go. Peace in America. 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 Come on. Peace in America. Peace in America. Peace in America. Peace in America. Come on. Peace in America. Yeah. Peace in America. Peace in America.
Like sometimes the Hawaiians, they'll say to you, turn your underwear inside out. They don't actually say that. That's just like an old witch's thing. If you I know what my auntie always says to me. She's like, don't forget, if you're gonna go into that place, remember, you try and start. Because it's like an old tale. Nah, it's like an old trick to like to deter the bad energy. When people are there, like when like skinwalkers are around, or like, you know, or you are considering that if you go to this place, that somebody might be there who's trying to put a spell on you, or like who might have bad like intention for you. To, you know, it's one step. There's many things, of course, but you know, these are little things that end up being big pieces to like help deter bad energy and bad intent. But I forget what we were talking about now.
How does music, your creative gift, your medicine, play a role in the transmutation, the alchemy of darkness?
Oh. Well, it's like surfing, I guess, because bless the ocean, but if the ocean was like the lava, you know, even a kid, you play like the game, like the ground is lava and you have to stay above it. It's like if the void, the darkest of the depths of the ocean is like, you know, the darkness and the void and the infinity of emptiness, or, you know, then if you can pay attention to, if music is your surfboard, where am I going with this analogy? If music is your surfboard and if you are in that flow, that perfect flow of paying attention to the ocean, the darkness, to all of that it surrounds, all that it encompasses, and you're in tune with your body to be balanced, and you're in tune with your instrument, your surfboard, and the flow of not just you, your instrument, and the ocean, but of all those things combined. That's the perfect storm. But
And the perfect wave.
Yeah.
The perfect ride.
Yep. Did you say right or ride?
Ride.
Oh, I was like, she's goofy.
Both. It could be a double.
Hey. But you know, your question was, how does music transmute the darkness? Is that correct?
Or dance with it.
Dance with it. I mean, I think it comes from those places. I don't know fully, because it's a mystery to me still how it works. When you think of the music that's in everything and all of creation, you go, well, this entire song that we live in every day, how does that work? You know, like, how is that carrying us in this perfect alchemy of life? It's not just like a intentional song that I create. You know, it's all of the pieces that have to literally come together in order for that specific moment to happen. And that is life. That is the mystery of life. And it's unexplainable. We just try and ride it.
Now, I promised Melissa I'd get you out on time, so I have a burning question for you.
Yeah.
This is personal to me.
Okay.
Because I totally cried and broken open through I Like Dinoz. What is the love story behind that song?
Well, I used to. I don't know if I told the story in Denver about the dinosaurs and the. Okay, yeah.
I heard it all.
Yeah, yeah.
I have it on
Okay, yeah.
everything. I'll read
And now, a story about dinosaurs. Two dinosaurs that are very, 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 very in love, which is nice. But one day the earth changes, as she does. And they're separated for a very, 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 very fucking long time. It's a long time. No more dinosaur hugs. No more dinosaur drugs. And definitely no more dinosaur sex. But one day the earth changes again, as she does. And a land bridge was built, in fact many, and they found themselves circling the same 100-acre wood. And they got back together and everything was great. Yay! This is their story. I will die from rising tides, from never-ending winters.
everything. I'll replay it, so you don't have to.
I was dating a woman at that time for many years, and it's not that funny. It's like I remember we used to live in a tree house on the Big Island, and I remember the night that I freestyled most of that song and recorded it. And it had been after a long day of tripping face through her neighborhood, which was basically like all like gravel, like lava gravel. It was like it's pretty like flat. You're above the ocean a bit, but you're also like really near the volcano that's now currently erupting. And it's just all fern and like, you know, there's nothing like really there. And then pigs, boars. And I remember we were riding bikes through the neighborhood, and there's not a lot of houses. It's like they're little lots, you know, and they're like, you don't see anybody out there ever. Once in a while you see your neighbor, you know. At that time, really trying to figure out, and I think that it was around the same time I wrote Aloha Ke Akua. And I was thinking about like where I wanted to be if the ship stopped coming, if martial law was enforced, and I couldn't freely travel, and if I was put in the same shoes as some other people in different parts of the world, right? And I thought about this idea of, you know, that I would die from rising tides, that the glaciers would melt enough for them to swallow the islands, and we would all be standing there on the hill on the farm and be like, well, I guess this is how it's going down. Just kind of a surrendering of acceptance of like, well, this is just how it is. We have no control over it. And if we do, what are we gonna do? You know, and the feat that it would be to take that control, and what would that first step be, you know? But it doesn't matter because I have you, and I'm crying out to you, you know, from yeah, and it's as if I wasn't able to be with my love at that time, that the water swallowed us. And so it kind of is speaking from a tragedy place, but also a deep like loyalty to I'll find you again one day, kind of a thing, you know. and the song does go all over the place, but it's always been one of my favorite songs because even though I went all over the place, it still made sense to me.
I heard the silver lining towards the end of the song. They do meet.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
In a different, maybe a different land, a different dimension.
There won't be room for everyone,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
Because the earth will always be here, but our time is limited.
Don't know our hours are dwindling. If that fire goes unattended, I will gather kindling. I'll sing these songs, sing the praises and glories. I'll sing these songs into the gray overcast mornings. And it's clear to me it's quite a vertical thing. We all must find our own way home.
In your song, you talk about returning home. Is there a distinction between returning home from your will and returning home from God's will?
I don't think I even am considering that when I talk about home. I think it's more I'm considering like I've always been fascinated by death, and so I think that when I talk about home, I just think about returning to dust. You know, kind of I said this in the song as well, returning to the soil from which we came. And so, yeah, I haven't thought about it like that really. I mean, I'm sure I have, but not in that particular song. I was mostly considering returning back to to ashes, you know, into the soil and back to minerals and molecules. And
it's a darkly beauty in that analogy.
Yeah.
Returning to dust.
Yeah.
But to live life like this takes much practice, breaking habits, born into and oh my love, we were created carnivores, and much like dinosaurs, we will die, but live forever, yes, forever in the soil from which we came, man. We'll sing these songs, we'll sing the praises and glories. We'll sing these songs into the gray overcast mornings.
Aloha, my name is Nakho, and I'm here with The Love Story, and I too have loved and lost.